Hello and welcome to Mystery Us. I'm Tony Pratt, your host for Mystery Us, and our guest on this edition of the program is Dr. Michael Cremo, author of the controversial bestseller Forbidden Archeology, and his latest book is Human Devolution, a Vedic Alternative to Darwin's Theory. Welcome to Mystery Us, Michael, or should I say welcome back to Mystery Us.
Well, it's great to be back here again with you and all your viewers.
Great. Now, there was an NBC special called The Mysterious Origins of Man.
Kind of similar to your title.
Right, right. And in fact, Charlton Heston was the narrator, and
That's right.
It was really a big-time TV special. But you had a lot of people from the academic world and some scientists who were wanting you to be banned from the airwaves. How do you respond to that?
Well, it's sort of typical of what you'd expect. This was the first television program, to my knowledge, that aired on a mainstream television network that challenged the Darwinian theory of evolution. So it caught the Darwinist evolution scientists completely by surprise when they turned on their televisions on a Sunday night and saw this come out on NBC. Of course, this was in the year 1996, but the program has been broadcast many times since then. I think they've recently released a new DVD that has a lot of the outtakes, things that didn't make it onto the show itself. But when they were filming this program, I told the producer, Bill Cote, that there were some very interesting artifacts in the Museum of Anthropology at the University of California at Berkeley, some 50-million-year-old human artifacts from the California gold mines.
Right.
And this completely challenges the Darwinian theory of evolution, because they think humans like us came into being only far more recently,
Sure.
having evolved from more primitive ape-like ancestors. So he went to the museum, but they refused to allow him to film those objects. And then when the show aired, scientists in America, the Darwinist scientists, were completely outraged. They were completely surprised, and they became even more angry when they learned that NBC was going to show this program a second time. So they made a huge campaign on the internet to get scientists from all over the world to write to the chairman of the General Electric Company, which owns NBC, asking him to tell NBC, don't show this program again. Now, I'm happy to say that NBC didn't do that. Actually, they made publicity telling the American people, watch the program, scientists don't want you to see.
Yeah.
So then they became even more angry, and they were especially angry because they knew I had something to
Right.
do, with this program. They didn't like my views, and they actually went to the Federal Communications Commission, a group of these scientists, and tried to get the FCC to investigate NBC, censure NBC, fine NBC millions of dollars so they never do anything
Wow.
like this again. So I thought, okay.
Fine them
that's pretty
for what? What would be the crime? I mean,
well, for
telling the truth?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think it would be, but I think according to their point of view that they didn't want to see this information out there, because the idea that children would be seeing something on television, on NBC, that completely contradicted what they were telling them in the schools
Right.
really upset them. And they were also afraid that, and this is documented from email messages that were circulating among scientists at the time, they were also afraid that, well, perhaps this would filter down to the political representatives. They might stop their funding, so they were
Right.
very concerned about that.
Maybe they should stop their funding.
I think for certain
they're
kinds
not-
of research, what I think is this: I don't think that they should be given an artificial monopoly in the education system.
Right.
Most people in America don't accept the Darwinian theory of evolution. There are growing numbers of scientists who don't accept it. There are intelligent design theorists and creationists of various kinds who don't accept that theory. And I think that's a fact. It has to be recognized. And I mean, normally we wouldn't tolerate our government telling us, you can only watch one kind of TV show or buy one kind of car, but right now the Darwinist scientists have influenced the government, mainly through its judicial system, through the federal courts,
It's
say that.
ironic that Charlton Heston, star of the Planet of the Apes, was your narrator.
Well, yes, it was, because if you remember that film, he went as an astronaut to this planet where the apes were in charge,
Yeah.
and there was an ape archaeologist who had discovered evidence that humans existed before the apes and had an advanced civilization. So
That would be your counterpart in a
that's
parallel universe.
Right, yeah, that's my counterpart in a parallel universe.
That is funny.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, and did Charlton Heston express any views in support of this, or was he?
Well, not directly to me.
Yeah.
But I don't think he needed the money. I think he was really interested in the ideas. Of course, he'd have to. He can't speak for himself now. He's gone. But
Right.
But I don't think he needed the money to do that show.
Yeah. Now, in your book, you bring out a lot of evidence, and I'm not sure which one of your books, because I just read both of them, that a lot of prominent scientists from the past that we may be familiar with, like Pierre and Marie Curie, were involved in alternative type scientific experiments.
Well, yes, that information is something I documented in my book, Human Devolution, where I presented an alternative to the current theories of human origins. I mean, basically, today scientists say, well, we evolved up from matter. And I say, no, well, we devolved or came down from a level of pure consciousness or spirit. There's a lot of subtle energies associated with the human organism. There are phenomena like telepathy, mind reading, and communication at a distance, and extrasensory perception, and mind over matter sorts of things. Now, when some people hear things like that, they say, well, that's not science. That is something else. That's pseudoscience. That's completely out of bounds. But such people aren't really aware of the real history of science. And one of the examples I give is the two scientists that you just mentioned, Pierre and Marie Curie. They were husband and wife. They both got Nobel Prizes in physics for their work in discovering radium, and for some other work that they did as well. They discovered radioactivity. Now, you find that mentioned in every physics textbook. Every high school student will read about that. What you don't read in the physics textbook is that they were heavily involved in psychical research. They were doing research with mediums. They were doing research in telekinesis, mind over matter. For example, they did 2 years of experiments with an Italian medium named Eusapia Palladino. And in a scientific research laboratory in Paris, they saw a large table floating about 3 feet off the ground with no one touching it in broad daylight, not in somebody's dark living room, which is the usual kind of
And it was under controlled conditions where it couldn't be magic or anything
that's
like
right.
that.
And this was just one time. And they did 2 years of experiments like this, but you're never going to see anything mentioned like this in the physics textbooks, because it goes completely against the modern scientific idea that a human being is just a combination of chemicals.
Right.
That's all. There's no subtle energies or soul or anything like that. This is the modern idea. But if you really study the actual history of science, you'll see many scientists who have investigated these things and have come to the conclusion that yes, there's more to a human being than chemicals. There's a subtle mind element with some very unusual powers, and beyond that, there is a conscious self that can exist completely apart from the brain, apart from the body. And so it's really quite interesting. Yes, there's a whole hidden history of science.
In your books, you also discuss eoliths and paleoliths.
Well,
what are they?
That goes back to my book, Forbidden Archeology, which is about evidence for extreme human antiquity, evidence that humans have existed for many, many millions of years in the past,